Last video we talked about the best quad exercises for the fastest gains. In this video, I'll show you the most efficient glute and hamstring exercises to build you the most muscle in the least amount of time possible. Let's get started. Lower body gains wouldn't be the same without a solid pair of hamstrings and glutes. After all, who wouldn't want better glutes? The hamstrings are composed of four muscles: the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, the biceps femoris long head, and the biceps femoris short head. Now the first three do these same actions: bend the knee and help the glutes extend the hips. But the short head only bends the knee, so to maximize your hamstring potential, we need to include exercises that flex the knee under resistance. The glutes are comprised of three muscles: the gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and the gluteus minimus. The main function of the glutes is to extend the hip, and the medius and minimus help to perform abduction, or bringing the leg out to the side, and external rotation, or rotating the leg away from the body. We'll talk more about these functions in the next video. As you can tell, the glutes extend the hip just like the hamstrings, so they can work together in this way. On the flip side, a lot of quad exercises, such as squats, also involve extending the hips, just like the glutes do. So the glutes are kind of like the middleman between the quads and the hamstrings, working together with both of them in different exercises to extend the hip. This means the glutes get a lot of volume and attention already, since we like to prioritize compound movements, like squats, RDLs, and split squats, for maximum efficiency in the gym. The glutes can take on a lot of load too. However, this also means the glutes usually require more warm-up sets, which takes more time to do. We'll talk about how to make up for this time later in the video. The main hamstring glute combo exercise is the deadlift. This involves the quads a little bit since you technically are extending the knee, but the main actions are being performed by the hamstrings and the glutes. Sumo deadlifts get a lot of flack because some people believe it's cheating, but in actuality it just depends on your anatomy. If you're longer limbed like myself, this may be more advantageous for you, or you can stick with the regular deadlift. Either way, make sure you're progressing in load over time, and it's the first exercise of that day since it requires a lot of muscles and also has a lot of fatigue behind it. To do the conventional deadlift, you want to keep the weight close to your body throughout the entire rep, starting with it at your shins. If the weight is far out in front of you, then your low back, glutes, and hamstrings are going to have to work a lot harder to lift the weight up because the lever arm is longer. I usually use a little wider than the hip width stance for the conventional deadlift. With the sumo deadlift, you'll use a wider stance with the toes out, so when you go down to grab the bar, your shins are perpendicular to the floor. This may take some trial and error to get quite right, and definitely helps to film your technique to get just right. With both deadlifts, you want to keep your lower back as neutral as you can, at least since the start of the exercise. Everybody has a little bit of a curve in their low back that curves in towards your stomach. This is natural and it's called lordosis. This is basically where the body is the most comfortable and efficient with your low back. If you arch even more, that's called anterior pelvic tilt, and if you flatten your low back, that's called posterior pelvic tilt. Neither of these are bad. But to start, we want a neutral low back. Before you lift the bar, adjust to get that neutral low back, pack your lats in towards your hip, and take a deep breath in so not only your stomach pushes out, but also your sides and low back. This fills up the diaphragm with air and creates a lot of core pressure for low back stability, similar to blowing up a balloon. This is called the Valsalva maneuver. A word of caution when using the Valsalva maneuver is that this increases intra-abdominal pressure, but it can also cause an increase in blood pressure. If you're prone to pass out or have high blood pressure or any other cardiac respiratory issues, consult your physician before using this technique. If you do have these issues, I wouldn't hold your breath, but instead tighten up your core, making it as stiff as you can. If you can do the Valsalva maneuver, hold this breath and tighten up your core. After this, you want to pull the slack out of the bar. This ensures you don't waste any energy during the lift, as this can feel like a speed bump if you were to just go for it and try to lift the bar up. Then you're ready for takeoff. While pulling the bar up, try to push your hips forward at the same time. This is obviously easier with lighter weights and becomes more challenging with heavier weights. Lower the bar by reversing the movement. With the fatigue in mind, I don't see much point in doing sets of more than 3 to 5 reps, especially because they take a lot of time due to warm-ups and rest between sets. I personally do only 1 or 2 heavy sets and focus on the rest of the exercises of the day on other movements that don't cause as much fatigue. So if you're doing 2 leg days per week, you can start off your first leg day with the heavy squat variation, and then the next day you hit legs, you would start off with a heavy deadlift variation. You can also do a Romanian deadlift or stiff-legged deadlift as part of back-off sets after your heavy 1 or 2 sets of deadlifts. These are even better for the hamstrings since they lengthen them more than regular or sumo deadlifts. And you're already warmed up for them, so in most cases you can go straight into your working sets and maximizing on time. The technique for Romanian deadlifts is pretty similar. The stance will be the same as the conventional deadlift, and you'll usually start off with the bar a little lower than hip height. Bend the knees only slightly, take a deep breath in and engage the core, and push the butt back until it can't go back anymore. The bend of the knees shouldn't change, so the only motion is really coming from the hip. This exercise focuses more of the load on the hamstrings and the glutes. Now the stiff-legged deadlift is almost identical, except your knees will be locked out through the entire movement, focusing even more of the attention on the glutes and the hamstrings. I've been using the dumbbell variation lately and it's been super efficient to do, as I really only need one warm-up set if it's my first exercise of the day, and loading up to heavier dumbbells is a lot less cumbersome than loading and unloading weight plates on both sides of a barbell. Now this study examined how lifting straps affected well-trained female weightlifters' deadlift performance and found the straps to be quite effective in increasing the amount of reps they were able to perform. And this makes sense. Out of all the muscles deadlifts use, your grip is going to give out before your low back, hamstrings, and glutes do. So why wouldn't you use lifting straps? The first strap is easy to get on since your other hand can help, but the second one can be trickier. I can usually get the first loop around, but for the second, I found it convenient to roll the weight away, then roll it back and help to get the loop over with momentum, letting me grab it with my thumb and index finger as shown in the video. You can then roll it away and back again to solidify your grip on it. A weightlifting belt can also help to increase the intra-abdominal pressure, providing more support for your low back during these exercises, as the study has shown. For RDLs and stiff-legged deadlifts, I like to work with 2 to 3 sets for 6 to 10 reps. Dumbbells will be a lot more efficient than barbells, but feel free to switch between the two as you like. Since deadlifts hit a lot of muscles and are pretty fatiguing, it can be challenging to find an exercise to superset it with. I usually do calf raises, either single leg or double leg, between sets of my warm-up sets, or balance exercises so I don't interfere with my future sets. A single leg Romanian deadlift is also an option. However, balance will be a component that will be your main limiting factor unless you use support with the other arm. But then the limiting factor becomes weight that you can easily hold. Try holding a 100-pound dumbbell in one hand even with a strap, trying to bend over that way. It can also be difficult to determine how much resistance you are using with your supporting arm, so it's not as consistent every time you do it. You can also do back extensions as these hit the same muscles in the same way and require far fewer warm-up sets and not as much fatigue. However, I find these work in my low back a lot more and usually limit my sets to only 2 for that reason. You can progress in weight with these, but obviously it will not be as much as Romanian or stiff-legged deadlifts. I usually set up the incline as high as I can to mimic standing upright and usually recommend 55 degrees being the lowest, since as you get fatigue, it'll be harder to get into that position. These are great to do lengthened partials in, since you don't need to worry about falling forward like you would in an RDL or stiff-legged deadlift. I find turning my toes in even slightly helps to get a better stretch on the hamstrings and glutes. Now hip thrusts are fine, but there are a lot of issues I have with them. Number 1, they are toughest at the top of the movement, which can be harder to contract when you're under fatigue near the end of the set. Number 2, they can be time consuming for your warm-up sets. I would have worked with 315 pounds or more, so finding a bench or box to do these at, putting that near a wall, getting a barbell, loading up with 135, then 225, then finding 315, takes a good amount of time compared to the aforementioned dumbbell RDLs or back extensions. Number 3, they work the glutes in isolation and aren't as efficient as an RDL or back extension. RDLs and back extensions also work the hamstrings and use the glutes just as much. Keep in mind too, we haven't even talked about glute exercises that the quads help out with as well, so hip thrusts can be both redundant and a time killer in your training sessions. And lastly, the range of motion is not as large as in regular deadlifts, or their variations. Remember in previous videos, we want the best stretch possible to get the most hypertrophic stimulus we can from an exercise. In other words, the more of a stretch, the better it is for muscle growth. We simply don't get that in the hip thrusts as compared to other exercises. If you still want to do hip thrusts, I would recommend doing them on the machine instead of with the barbell, as these can be easier to set up since the machine is already there, it's easier to load and unload plates, and therefore the warm-ups are faster. What's really underrated are split squats, reverse lunges, and so forth because of the pelvis and hip flexors and how they are anatomically to really maximize the stretch of the glutes and the hip flexors. You see, when we do a regular double leg squat, our pelvis moves with both of our hips. This can drastically change, however, when we have a foot behind us, such as with split squats, Bulgarian split squats, or reverse lunges. Take the Thomas test for example. When I bring my right knee up to my chest and lower my left leg, I can't lower my left leg as much as I could if I didn't have my right knee up towards my chest. That's because of the pull the hip flexors have on the pelvis from each hip. Having my right hip flexor shortened keeps the pelvis locked in, giving me a better stretch than the left hip flexor than if I were to just let both legs go. What's this have to do with building amazing glutes? Well, first of all, it maximizes the stretch in the hip flexors. If our hip flexors are too tight, this can affect other movements such as squats. If your hip flexors are too tight, this can move the pelvis into anterior pelvic tilt. As you can see, my low back arches even more with this. Add some heavy weight to it, and there's more pressure in the lower back than it would be otherwise. Second, this helps us maximize the stretch in the front leg glute during split stance exercises. When I extend my back leg, my pelvis wants to rotate forward due to the stretch on the same side hip flexor. When my pelvis stays still due to my front leg being there. My front leg glute gets a nice stretch and has to work extra hard as a result, which is great for growing glutes. An added benefit to working one leg at a time is less warm-up sets. Typically, I would do 2 to 3 warm-up sets for a double leg of squats. With split squats, Bulgarian split squats, reverses, lunges, etc., I really only need 1, maybe 2 warm-up sets. Sure, sets take longer due to you having to do 2 legs in each set, but you also get to work 1 leg at a time, giving each a little extra love than you normally would if you were to only do double leg squats. I tested this with leg presses, 1 week doing double leg presses and the next week doing single leg presses. Including warm-ups and supersetting with either double leg calf raises or single leg calf raises accordingly on the leg press, it took me 16 minutes and 42 seconds to do 2 working sets of double leg presses and only 9 minutes and 54 seconds to do 2 working sets of single leg presses. I had to do 3 warm-up sets for the double leg version and only 1 warm-up set for the single leg version, so this obviously dragged out the double leg version's time. They were also more fatiguing since I was using more weight than the single leg version, so I had to rest longer as well. The Smith machine comes in handy super well for reverse lunges and split squats as far as progressively overloading and limiting systemic fatigue. And if you're using dumbbells, don't be afraid to use straps so your grip doesn't give out before your legs do. Also, since you're doing 1 set at a time, this can be systemically taxing, so you're obviously not doing 4 sets of 20 or anything. I'd recommend 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps each side. Progressive overload is gold here, and don't be afraid to really load them up. Keep in mind a lot of these exercises require a lot of muscles to coordinate and work together, not to mention lifting a lot of heavy weight, so longer rest periods in between sides is the best. Earn your legs and glutes 1 rep at a time, 1 workout at a time. Don't be surprised if you progress in weight or reps in one exercise and the next one suffers in the same workout. Leg presses are also super effective as you can adjust the foot position and therefore make a new exercise super easily, can cheat a little bit, and can also progress fairly fast in. As mentioned in my quads video, lowering my feet on the pad would allow me to bend my knees more, therefore hitting my quads more than my glutes. Placing my feet higher on the pad would result in my hips flexing more, hitting the glutes harder than the quads. Now I saved the leg presses for the glutes video as they hit these more effectively than they hit the quads. My hips starting in a lot of hip flexion, which is ideal to stretch the glutes, but isn't the best for stretching the quads. The rectus femoris crosses the hip joint, and with the hip flex, it's shortening instead of stretching. As we know from research previously mentioned in the series, we went to the most stretched position to maximize hypertrophy and muscles. Since the rectus femoris shortens when we flex the hip, even if we use a quad dominant leg press position and get our heels to our butt, we aren't stretching the rectus femoris like we could with other exercises. This doesn't mean the leg press is bad for the quads. It loads them up with a lot of weight, but it acts similarly to squats in this regard. However, the leg press is perfect for the glutes. They already get a good stretch just in the starting position alone. When we lower the weight, it just gets better, stretching the glutes quite possibly the most we can safely with an exercise. Do your best to keep a slight arch in your low back, but it's not the end of the world if it rounds. If this is uncomfortable or painful for you, you might need to lower the weight. Remember, for the hamstrings, they not only flex the knee, but also extend the hip, so we need an exercise that does the opposite of these motions to fully maximize the length and position. Seated hamstring curls are excellent for this and usually don't require that many warm-up sets, especially if you did deadlifts earlier in the workout. You can alternate these with prone hamstring curls on the other day that you do legs, since these are going to be working in a more shortened position, which can help with different strength curves throughout knee flexion movement as well as add variety. An important thing to remember with hamstring curls is to dorsiflex the foot or bring the toes towards the shins. The gastrocnemius, one of the major calf muscles, crosses the knee joint and can be strengthened with hamstring curls as well when we stretch out at the ankle, maximizing the amount of weight we use for hamstring curls and working more muscles in one exercise. They can do exercises such as Nordic hamstring curls, but these require more setup and it can be difficult to replicate the exercise, especially if you cannot do one without assistance. Anywhere from 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 20 reps for hamstring curls is a sweet spot. You can also adjust your leg position to bias either the outer or inner hamstring muscles and to progress when hitting plateaus. This study showed that turning the toes in targets the more medial hamstring muscles, and turning the toes out targets the lateral hamstring muscles more. I found turning my toes in has been the most challenging, so start with this, then on the second set I have my toes straight, and on the third set I turn my toes out. Hamstring curls are also super easy to implement drop sets with, as you can quickly get a lot of effective volume in a short amount of time, making up for the amount of time loading out for your heavy deadlift sessions earlier in the session. If you just decide to do Nordic hamstring curls, I would do 2 sets of 5 to 10 reps. These are pretty technical and you can get fatigued pretty easily. You could even do the seated or prone hamstring curls afterwards so that you get the benefits of both exercises in the same workout. Lengthened partials are also really fun for hamstring curls and can help break through plateaus. I usually use the strap to hold myself in place during seated hamstring curls, as I find I can go into a little bit of hip extension with these, and it completely cuts out the hamstrings getting involved, so that way I can isolate them better. Using this guide, you'll soon be on your way to getting bulletproof hamstrings and those glutes you've been working so hard for. I can go into a deeper dive on these muscles in future videos, so if you would like me to do that, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you liked or didn't like about this video. I know it was a longer video, and I really do appreciate you guys sticking it out to the end. Like this video if you found it helpful, and click subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Hope this helped, and I'll see you guys here in the next video.